Hey there, friends. Welcome to the Taking Your Next Step podcast from Collegians for Christ. Through each episode, we will journey together focusing on knowing what you believe and why you believe it. If you are eager, like I am, to strengthen your faith and take your next step now by joining us in today's episode. We're continuing on this theme of Jesus reversing our thinking, really taking the teachings of his time and turning them upside down. And he comes to three topics here, kind of all very different, but he's diving into the root matter of each issue, that the religious system of that day had changed what God's original intent was, and they had added to. And that's kind of the warning for you and I, that it's possible for religion to add to the core teachings of God, make it look good, make it seem like this is what will make you righteous. But Jesus steps on the scene and says, let me reverse your thinking about this. Now we come to adultery, to oaths, and to retaliation. He said, ye have heard that it was said by them of old time. This is what your teachers have been telling you, that thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. Then he goes in to talk about if our eye offend thee, we should pluck it out. If our hand offend thee, that we should cut it off. That it's better for you and I to not have an eye or not have a hand than to perish. And so we go in and he says here, begins to really give us the truth about adultery. The biblical intent of marriage was that God originally intended for a man and woman to come together and for that union to be lifelong. So marriage was intended to be a lifetime commitment. Divorce should not be considered as an option to solve problems, a way out of a relationship that seems dead or you've gotten bored with, or you just don't like the person anymore. Sometimes marriage is treated in our culture today like a boyfriend-girlfriend. You don't like each other, you just break up. But God's commitment, or covenant, if I should say, for marriage was that it would be lifelong. And the marriage illustrates Jesus and the bride, the church. And that's why marriage is so very important. They had a twisted teaching on divorce. And so the subject of divorce was highly debated among the Jews. The religious leaders allowed divorce for almost any reason. Think about that. So, and the other issue was women had a low value in culture. And so, throughout Jewish history, and Moses had allowed them to give a divorce, but Jesus says it was out of the hardness of their heart that God allowed that. And so Jesus says, look, that's not allowed. I'm going to give you the true teaching on marriage here, and it is lifelong. I'm going to give you one reason, though, that marriage can be broken, and that is adultery. And so Jesus reverses this thinking on marriage, and he begins to go in and say, hey, look, your religious leaders have allowed you to divorce their wives for whatever reason. They don't like them. They're tired of them. They're frustrated. Whatever it is, they were allowed to give them a bill of divorcement. And Jesus says, no, that is not right at all. Let me reverse your thinking. There is one reason why divorce can be allowed, and that was for adultery, when a spouse is unfaithful with their spouse, or against their spouse. And so, they break the union between each other. Why would adultery be that one reason that is allowed? Well, God talks about marriage as one man and one woman coming together and becoming one. And so this breaks that one flesh union. It destroys the identity and the value that that woman or that man has. It will ruin their security. It ruins their faith in. It creates jealousy. There's so many things that adultery can creep into a marriage. And I've seen marriages that have been put back together through adultery, and the forgiveness has been there. I have seen marriages that have split up and have gone separate ways because of that. And I can see what the adultery can do, whether physical, whether emotional adultery with another person, because it just destroys that union. It's hard to come back from it. But Jesus says this is the root of adultery. He says, if you look on a woman, if you look on a man and you lust after them in your heart, you've already committed adultery. This is where the root occurs. It occurs with lust. It occurs with an issue with pornography. It occurs with you not being able to control yourself, your eye, your mind. And if you don't control it, it will control you. And every bit of the adultery and divorce that happens in our country today and in relationships today boils down to this root issue, that of lust. And lust here, he says, looketh on a woman is an active participle. It's continual action. It means they're staring, they're pursuing, they're considering it, they're entertaining it in their mind and heart. You see, it's not the first involuntary glance that is the problem. It is the second or prolonged stare, the deliberate look that feeds the flesh and the desire, and this turns that glance into a lustful look. You see, without the lustful look, there would never be adultery. Without the lustful look, there would never be sexual sins of any kind. And where does this lust take place? Jesus teaches us that it takes place in the mind and heart, and as such, it's the same as acting it out physically. The lustful look is so dangerous that it easily leads to adultery. It's so dangerous that Jesus says, look, do not look. Take your eye out if you have a problem. He doesn't mean literally speaking. He's speaking figuratively here. But he says it is so destructive, so dangerous that it's better for you to literally remove your eye and only have one eye. He says, don't touch. It is better for you literally to lose your hand and your ability to use that hand for other things if it's going to destroy you. He says, look, lust destroys. Divorce destroys two people and destroys more people, kids and other people that are involved in it. So we're better to lose an eye or a hand than we are to lust after. He was not telling us to hurt ourselves, but rather to control ourselves. And this shows how strong the Lord feels about sexual purity. He goes on to say, hey, I'm going to switch gears on you here about adultery and then go into an oath. Again, you have heard that it has been said by them of old time, thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it's the city of the great king. What is he saying here? Be a man or a woman of your word. The Old Testament permitted people to make an oath in God's name, which then in turn had to be kept. Maybe you've heard people say, hey, I swear to God I'll do such and such. I swear to God I didn't lie. That's kind of the idea of the Old Testament there. But Jesus says, no, this is wrong thinking. You see, Pharisees had allowed oaths to be put in other names, other names I'm trying to say, to allow them a way out from keeping their word. But the New Testament and what Jesus says is, look, don't swear at all because it all leads back to God. Regardless, if you swear to God, you swear to heaven, you swear to this, you swear on somebody's name. You've heard us say, I swear on my mama's name, whatever it is. Jesus just says simply, be a man or woman of your word. Just say yes or no and follow through with it. Do what you say you're going to do. And then lastly here, he talks about retaliation. You have heard that it has been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you that you resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man will sue thee at the law and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow thee, turn thou not away. And so the truth about retaliation here, he's going to reverse our thinking again. In the Old Testament and the teachings of the religious leaders, they had allowed for retaliation. The Pharisees had changed what God had said and extended it to give rights to individuals to retaliate. But Jesus said, look, you should not retaliate. There should be a third party that enters in to take care of that. We see that with our judicial system. You and I are not to we're not to retaliate on the person who steals from us, the person who harms us, the person who does something to break the law against us. We allow the third party to step in, the police officer, the judicial system with the judge, and for them to, quote unquote, retaliate. Why are we not to retaliate? Well, one, because we have a lot of emotional ties to the situation. We may not be able to control ourselves. Anger may come out. We may cross a line. We may end up harming someone more than they harmed us. Romans 13:4 tells us that God gave government as God's minister to execute judgment. And the Bible also tells us, look, avenge not yourself, for vengeance is of the Lord. We have to release it and allow God to work. So the New Testament retaliation is, look, don't retaliate. And he says kind of some practical things here. He says, don't retaliate a slap on the face. Now, we are not talking about protecting ourselves. Like if somebody hits you, say, hit me again. We're not talking about that. What he's saying is don't retaliate. If someone slaps you, don't slap them back. Now, if you need to defend yourself, self-defense is taught throughout Scripture. You must protect and defend yourself. Even Jesus told him, hey, it's time now. If you have a purse, let him take it. Likewise, his scrip. And if you have no sword, buy a sword. You need something to protect yourself as you go through this life. And then he says, do not retaliate with a countersuit in court. Don't countersue someone. Christians should not go to court against each other. Then he talks about going the extra mile. That was in Roman culture. The Romans could ask the Jews to carry something, to go somewhere, and they'd have to go the extra mile, or they'd have to go the mile. And Jesus is saying, hey, look, go the extra mile. Go further than what they're asking. Show them love. And then he talks about borrowing money. Now, this is not a blanket statement for you to give away everything that you possess, for you to find yourself with no financial means to take care of yourself. You see, first we must take care of our own. If somebody's asking to borrow, we must give what is asked rather than cash. We don't enable someone. We don't encourage a beggar or encourage laziness. We would be in the wrong at that point. Some will ask and borrow you dry. And so we have to be careful with that. So what Jesus is saying here, look, don't retaliate. Instead, do the opposite. Be willing to give. Show them love. And so Jesus really reverses our thinking on three topics here: adultery, oaths, and retaliation. It all gets down to a matter of our heart. And that's what he's getting at. Lust, adultery, is a matter of the heart. You and I being a man or a woman of our word, that's a matter of our heart. Are we already making the decision that we're going to be honest, that we're going to be ethical, that when we say we're going to be at work at a certain time, when we say to this person, I'm going to do this, that we keep our word? And that as we interact with people, we're not looking to retaliate. That is a matter of the heart. Anger, frustration, retaliation. Rather, we allow God to assume that position for us. And we do not retaliate. So as you walk through this, search your heart. Let me search my heart and find out what are the true motives and the true intents of my heart. Am I keeping a pure eye? Am I keeping my word? And am I looking at people, not looking to retaliate and be vengeful towards them? Or am I allowing God to retaliate for me?
Thank you for taking the time to listen. If this podcast has been helpful to you, please share it with a friend or subscribe to stay up to date on the latest episodes. You can connect with Collegians for Christ online for more information and resources at cfccampusministry.com.